Honestly, I'm starting to seriously suspect that terracotta warriors are not earthly technology. Think about it, 8,000 life-size clay soldiers, all handmade, with absolutely zero clones. Researchers even 3D scanned their ears and discovered that, just like human fingerprints, no two clay ears are identical. Modern 3D printing can barely guarantee that level of flawless mass customization today. Even crazier is how they baked them. The kilns had to stay precisely between 1,700 degrees and 1,900 degrees. Today, we rely on advanced computer microchips to stabilize that kind of heat, but 2,200 years ago, they did purely by eye, judging the temperature by the shifting color of the flame. But the real fancy story is the paint. They used an artificial color that doesn't even exist in nature. When Stanford physicists tested it recently, the material literally dropped a dimension into a flat quantum state. Modern science still can't fully decode it, yet 2,200 years ago, ancient artisans were mass-producing quantum physics just for the aesthetics of a ghost army. So is this all just a massive coincidence, or did we accidentally dig up something that doesn't belong on our timeline? Either we have severely underestimated ancient human intelligence, or they had a user manual that wasn't from this planet. Today, we are going inside the mysterious dynasty behind the Terracotta Army, the Qin Dynasty. When you look at the terracotta warriors today, what do you actually see? Honestly, a sea of dull, dusty, brownish gray dirt. It looks ancient, solemn, and completely colorless. Because of this, millions of travelers fly to China thinking the first emperor's army was originally built to look like this gloomy, monochromatic mud crowd. But if you could step into a time machine and walk into this pit 2,200 years ago, your eyes would literally hurt from the contrast. This wasn't a dusty graveyard. It was a high-octane, blindingly bright, multicolored cyberpunk neon parade. Every single soldier was originally coated in vivid, high-saturation shades of brilliant scarlet red, bright forest green, charcoal black, and royal purple. So what happened to the colors? Here's the heartbreaking tragedy of the Terracotta Army. They survived the 2,200 years perfectly preserved in the dark. But the moment modern archaeologists cracked open the tombs in the 1970s, the sudden exposure to dry 20th century air caused the ancient lacquer underneath the paint to dehydrate. Within just 15 seconds, the paint began to warp. In less than 4 minutes, the vibrant color flaked, peeled, and vanished into thin dust forever. Modern science literally destroyed the emperor's true masterpiece just by looking at it. A sad story, but how did an ancient civilization pull off this level of artistic and a military scale? They didn't run their empire like a traditional kingdom. They ran it like a hyper-efficient, utterly heartless tech startup. Their secret weapon was a law, engraved the worker's name. Look closely at the display here, you will see tiny scratched characters. That wasn't an artist's proud signature, it was a literal target on their back. This was a 2,200 years old industrial quality control tracking system. If a crossbow jammed on the battlefield or a statue cracked in the kiln, they didn't guess who to blame. They read a name, found the worker or the manager, and executed them. Precision wasn't driven by artistic passion, it was driven by survival. This extreme accountability is also why these soldiers are not mass-produced clone troopers. Zoom in on their faces, you see high cheekbones from northwestern nomadic tribes, square jaws of Central Plains warriors, and round faces from the south. Researchers at UCL even 3D scanned their ears and found that, like human fingerprints, no two clay ears are exactly alike. This wasn't just an army, it was a physical map of a massive, violently conquered melting pot. And the terrifying part, this clay army was actually an act of radical humanism. For centuries before this, when a king died, they used blood. Real servants, soldiers, and concubines were forced into the dark to suffocate alive beside a royal corpse, which we also saw in ancient Ur and First Dynasty Egypt. The first emperor took that raw, bloody human sacrifice and scaled it up into industrial life-size clay art. The mastermind driving this machine was perhaps the most deeply traumatized ruler in history. His life reads like a dark R-rated HBO script. Born a political hostage in enemy territory, his childhood was a nightmare. He was betrayed by his own mother, who launched a bloody coup with her secret lover, and he was abandoned by his father, rebelled against by his half-brother, and his closest childhood friend literally sent an assassin to stab him in the chest. He grew up incapable of trusting a single living soul, so he chose total control. By age 39, he ended 5 centuries of constant war and declared himself the first emperor in China. History books love to paint him as a mindless barbarian who burned every book and buried every scholar alive. But the history records show a much more calculated reality. He didn't burn science, agriculture, or medicine books. He only destroyed the political texts that could spark a civil war. And those buried scholars, they were mostly fraudulent cult leaders and alchemists who scammed the imperial treasury. To be honest, I can understand this action. When you have just stitched a continent together for the first time, this may be the most efficient way to cement your grip on power. But his obsession with the impossible did give birth to real mind-blowing science. Look at this bronze chariot toy from the Xi'an Museum. The tiny sliding roof doors will only open if you rotate the 4 miniature bronze birds on the corners to an exact, secret mechanical angle. The engineering is flawless, but the real science story is the paint. The most surprised color on these soldiers and chariots was hand purple. And it didn't exist in nature. It was cooked up in an Asian lab at 1,800 degrees with zero room for error. Centuries later, Stanford physicists put this exact pigment under extreme magnet fields and discovered something weird. The material literally drops a dimension, flattening from 3D to 2D at a quantum level. It is a phenomenon that modern physics is still trying to decode. And yet, 2,200 years ago, ancient workers were mass-producing this quantum material just for the aesthetics of a ghost army. Now let's come to the ultimate historical mystery. When the Roman Empire collapsed, Europe shattered into a puzzle of warring states and never truly unified again. Why didn't China suffer the same fate? Because the first emperor didn't just conquer land. He was civilization's first true software engineer. Look at the standard volume measure. He realized the swords couldn't hold a continent together, so he forced an entire continent to use the exact same currency, the exact same weights, the exact same written script, and the exact same axle width for every single wagon wheel. Think of it like Apple forcing the entire planet to use USB-C, but 2,200 years ago, if your wagon wheel broke down 1,000 miles from home, any local blacksmith had a perfect replacement part that fit instantly. This extreme standardization hard-coded Chinese civilization to always auto-reboot back into one unified piece, no matter how badly it fractured. The final irony, this perfect unstoppable machine imploded in just 15 years because its creator was terrified of a single thing: dying. He passed away at 49, poisoned by the very Mercury elixirs he drank to chase immortality. His ministers were so terrified of a rebellion that they hid his corpse in a caravan of rotten fish to mask a smile while they forged his will. The dynasty died in the stench of decay. But his underground ghost army won the long game. We still call this place China today because of his dynasty, the Qin. In fact, today we are standing inside Shanghai Museum. This summer, the museum is playing host to a massive Qin Dynasty exhibition, and most of the stuff you see in this video is from this exhibition. It is a temporary gathering of royal artifacts that usually live thousands of miles apart in different regional vaults across China. And it is incredibly royal to see all the scattered puzzle pieces assembled under one roof. This is really amazing. And now let's continue with another haunting mystery that you won't find on any museum. Deep beneath the earth, the final resting place of the first emperor is literally flooded with mercury. Writing over 2,000 years ago, ancient historian claims that he mapped out rivers, lakes, and entire oceans inside his tomb made of pure flowing mercury. For centuries, modern historians assumed this was just a wild legend, but in 1981, scientists actually went out and tested the soil directly above the burial mound. The results were chilling. The mercury level in the center were dozens of times higher than the surrounding valleys. 2,000 years later, the chemical needle is still off the charts. We are talking about massive industrial quantity of toxic liquid metal. The sheer scale of mining, extracting, and transporting that much mercury 2,200 years ago is a logistical nightmare that should have been impossible for the ancient world. And he didn't just put it there for aesthetics. Mercury is a powerful preservative, and more importantly, it's the ultimate ancient booby trap. The trapped toxic vapors would instantly kill any grave robber brave enough to break in. So actually, the tomb hasn't been opened yet. First, the environmental hazard of leaking tons of toxic mercury vapor into the local atmosphere is an absolute nightmare. But second is a race against the time. We know that the split second more than air hits those untouched artifacts, they will oxidize and turn to ash in minutes, just like the vibrant paint on the terracotta soldiers did. The deepest secrets of the ancient world are sitting right under the dirt, and frankly, we still don't have the technology or the courage to unveil it. So a question for you, if the choice was yours, should we dig up the first emperor's tomb to uncover history, or should some secrets stay buried forever? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is Vicky, your China Culture Decoder. If you want to see more interesting content about China, hit subscribe and I will see you in the next one.